So, hi everyone. I'm Susan Belmonte, and I am the pre-teaching and pre-graduate advisor on campus, and I am part of the pre-graduate and pre-professional advising team. Our acronym, always need an acronym at Tech, is PGPP, and I'm housed in the Office of Undergraduate Education. So, my role is to work with students and alumni who are thinking about graduate school, who know they want to go, who are ready to apply. You can be in any of those phases. It's never too early to start having conversations about what you want to do after college. And I'm here to support you in that process.
Thanks, Susan. So, hi, I'm Risha. I work in the Office of Undergraduate Education, similar to Susan, but I work in a different department or different unit. And I work in the Academic Engagement Programs Center, for want of a better way of saying that. And I work on two specific programs. So, I work on student innovation. So, I help students start their own companies. And I also work on undergraduate research, which is exposing students as much as possible to research opportunities both on and off campus and pretty much trying to make them successful in that endeavor. And so we're so excited you're here today, and we're going to hand it over to our panelists to actually introduce themselves as well.
Two of the panelists are former advisees of mine. I will let them identify themselves if they want. Thank you for being here.
And so if we could go in the order of what's on the screen, and so pretty much at the top we have our three research faculty, and then at the bottom we have our research students. And so if we could go in the order of the screen in terms of tell a little bit about yourself to everyone that's on the call.
Hi everyone, my name is Dan Kotliar and I'm an assistant professor in nuclear and radiological engineering. So we're part of mechanical engineering and yeah, I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Hi, I'm Amit Reddy. I'm an associate professor in chemistry and biochemistry. I'm a biochemist. I've been here about 7 years, and just want to thank the organizers for including me in this panel, and I'm looking forward to it.
Good morning. This is Juan Rogers. I'm a professor of public policy at the School of Public Policy. I've been at Georgia Tech for almost 25 years. I am the director of graduate admissions at the school. So hopefully I'll be able to give you some insight into the process of getting into graduate school, at least as it fits our field and our school.
Hi everyone, I'm Brianna Mann. I am a first year graduate student at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I graduated from Tech spring of last year, and I am now in the Department of Pharmacoengineering and Molecular Pharmaceutics after graduating with a degree in chemistry.
I'm not sure if Alejandro's on the call as yet, and so we're going to hand over to Annalise.
Hi guys, my name's Annalise. I'm a second year graduate student in the School of Chemistry and Biochemistry at Georgia Tech, and I'm in the Ready Lab. So looking forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Matt Krasicki. I study nuclear engineering in Dr. Kotlier's lab, and my research focus is nuclear thermal propulsion. And I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody has to say.
Hello, my name is Xue Qiao. I'm a first year PhD student at MIT. I'm enrolled in the material science and engineering program, but my research group is actually in physics. So if there's interest in that direction, maybe I can also answer some questions in that aspect. And I graduated in that was fall 2019, pre-COVID time. It sounds like a long time ago. Yeah, with a degree in MSc.
Do you want to start us off with our first question?
Fantastic. So this question goes out to our graduate students. What have been some of the challenges you have experienced transitioning from being an undergrad to a graduate student? And anyone can start, but let me go with Annalise. Let's start with Annalise, and then you can pick up as we go along.
Okay. The biggest thing that stands out to me as the biggest challenge that I have had personally in transitioning from my undergraduate program to grad school was mainly figuring out how to organize yourself to and motivate yourself, because it's really different when you don't have so much structure in your life anymore. Yeah, and you still have just as much, if not more, to do. So there has to be structure, but no one's telling you how to implement the structure. And so for me, it's been like a juggling act. And I'm sure I'm probably not the only one, but yeah. So something that's really helped in that aspect is to think ahead and pace myself, because I'm sure everybody here is high achieving. You get your work done. You're good students, and you're used to the grind, and you achieve and you do well. You just need to also be able to pace yourself so that you can continue to do well, and not sort of like burn out or find yourself in a situation where you can't really do your best anymore because you're either doing too much or you haven't thought ahead. So yeah, that's been the biggest thing for me.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add? Any of our grad students? Brianna?
I was also going to add that imposter syndrome is a real thing, and you will probably feel it when you start grad school, especially as you join a community where people have been there longer and they just seem to know so much more than you do. So just getting comfortable not knowing things and knowing when to ask questions so that you can also learn. They don't expect you to know everything. That's why you're starting your graduate school. So you just being comfortable asking those questions, even if you think it's a very basic question, really helps to avoid that imposter syndrome.
Thank you. I'm looking to see if anyone else wanted to add to that.
I guess for me, as a new graduate student, first year, this is something probably very particular to me, because of the nature. So, well, I guess these are some of the excuses I have. So, because I'm transitioning from material science to condensed matter physics, which I'm working on. So this is like a kind of like a new field to me. I've never like actually worked on this field. So there's a lot of theoretical background, like very deep physics that I have to catch up on. And also my work is, as I said, experimental condensed matter. So there actually is a lot of experimental work. So right now I'm struggling to find time to catch up on literature to enrich myself in terms of the theoretical background. I'm still struggling with it. And I think a good advice is that like you really do need to, at least, maybe too particular for me. I do need to like get really like started on a lot of my experiments, but don't get lost in experiments right away. It's still very important to try to find some time to go into literature and try to understand like the system, the overall big picture of what you're working on.
Thank you. Susan?
Sure. So this question is for our faculty. What are the challenges you see newer graduate students experiencing that are different from more experienced students? We've heard from students at different points in their programs, but for you as the faculty members, what are some of those challenges you have seen over your time working with graduate students? Dr. Rogers, you want to start us off?
Sure. So a couple of things. One of the students mentioned getting organized. Yes, time management is very, very critical. Now you have to look at the path you are engaging in more from a professional point of view. You are much more in charge of your own destiny. You have to think of graduate school as being in business for yourself. So you have to have some clarity in terms of what you're seeking from it. And that requires that you get that sense of, the principles by which you're going to organize your life and assign time to each thing. The second thing I would mention is that few people acknowledge the emotional stuff of learning. Learning has many emotional phases. And so when you encounter stuff that's new, you have a lot of anxiety. Sometimes things do not work out quickly, and so you also experience frustration. Oftentimes that combination leads you to try to find some external factor to blame. So you're going to feel that people are sort of ganging up against you or something like that. But acknowledging this process of emotion that actually ends up in a nice place, because then you experience elation, you experience enthusiasm when things start to work out, but you have to have the patience to get there. And that closes the circle. And so acknowledging that helps you, get some balance in the whole process and enjoy it a bit more. I would also say that different fields have different demands, right? And so in our field in the social sciences, there's a lot of volume of material that comes at you suddenly. And you have to start to realize that you probably will not be able to read all that material in detail because you don't have enough time. So you have to start to make judgments about what to focus on in more detail. It doesn't mean that you don't comply with the requirements. It means that you start to find ways in which redundancy, for example, helps you. And so you start to detect commonalities, and you don't need to cover things 3 or 4 times just because you want to get through the reading. And so it more of a sense of engaging with material in a deliberate way, in an active way, rather than a passive way. So you engage the material with some inquiry, some sense of demanding from the material to reveal itself to you, rather than just expect things to just come in and inform you. So that maturity in the process of learning is probably something that you will have to you will have to develop quite quickly. And the other thing I would say is seek help quickly and soon. Don't let things fester until the last moment, because then it's very difficult to fix things. And so with the school, the resources, the professors are there for you rather than you for them. And so once you realize that everybody is there to help you, to assist you in your learning, that we have a vested interest in your success, then maybe you'll find the path to be a lot easier to traverse. But it takes some time to adapt to that. So that's what I would say. I find mostly the difference between just starting out and requiring some maturity in graduate school.
Thank you for bringing that up. Who would like to go next for our faculty?
I'm happy to give some insights as well. So I think time management is very important, and you definitely want to make sure you budget enough time for studying, because at the end of the day, you are graduate level students, maybe transitioning from other fields to a different field. You need to make sure you have enough time to study. So this is something that's very difficult, very personal for each one of you. And I always tell my students that study comes first and research comes second. Again, it's a personal philosophy. Every supervisor would be different. In respect to the time management, when it comes down to research, I would suggest eventually you would need to be independent PhD students, master students, but at least when you start, I think you need to have and adjust some expectations with your supervisor, who definitely has some experience in time management. So that would be a very good source to go and set expectations, maybe have weekly meetings, weekly reports, always help. That would be number one. Number two, I think that what I see as a challenge for a graduate level student is scientific writing. We are all coming from different background and so on. We can all read. Can we document things? Because if you haven't documented that, you haven't performed the research. So in my opinion, have some background before you come to the graduate level school. I'm sure Georgia Tech has different scientific writing courses, but do this prior to coming to Georgia Tech. And with this, I'll probably stop.
Dr. Reddy, Amit, do you want to?
Yeah, I think the the two previous people that spoke were really comprehensive, and I think the major things that I see, I think I'll just emphasize the point about expectations. I think that especially in the experimental sciences, you join a research lab and you spend 4 to 6 years working in that group. And depending on the group you join, it may not be entirely clear to you what is expected of you. You might join a very large group in which the advisor is not around a lot, and you may be sort of lost, thinking, what am I supposed to do? Or you could be joining a group that the advisor is essentially micromanaging you. There's extremes on either end. Whatever situation you're in, it's really important that you have a strong sense of what you think you should be doing, but also talking to your advisor about if they think that's the right path. I think when I see issues arise, it's usually because communication is broken down and there's some disconnect between the student and the advisor. So I think that whatever situation, whatever research group you join, it's important that you have a strong sense of what you're doing and why, and making sure it's reasonable. And that means that you're talking to your advisor regularly about it, maybe weekly or biweekly about it. But also making sure that whatever expectations are there are manageable. You don't want to sort of stress yourself out by giving yourself unreasonable expectations, and trying to convince yourself and your advisor that you can do that. They all have to be reasonable and sustainable, and that will change. What you can't do now may be different in 6 months or a year. So this is a constant evolution. I just think just managing expectations is a really important thing, and the difference between success and failure, really, in many cases.
Can I
Thank
add a
you so
couple of
much.
things?
Yeah, sure.
So another thing I would mention is take advantage of horizontal learning. There's a lot going on with your peers, and so cultivate those relationships in ways that are fruitful, so that you can learn together. And the other thing I would say is in research, in science in general, in all fields, natural sciences, social sciences, research in science has a lot of criticism in it. There's a lot of negative feedback happening all the time, and it's structural. And that can be quite a burden sometimes if you don't understand what is happening. It can be emotionally draining. And so you have to get used to it and use it for learning, and not let it get to you in a personal way. That is something that even goes all the way up to your early career once you graduated. I advised and mentored young professors that have a hard time dealing with all the negative feedback that comes from just the structure of how science is. So that is one thing that you have to learn very early. People actually feel smart when they can criticize your ideas. So you have to just get over it.
All right, Risha.
Yes,
Turn.
it takes me. I keep on muting and unmuting myself. So for grad students on the call, what would you do differently if you could prepare for a graduate school all over again? So including the application process. Any thoughts on that? And I'm looking for anyone who wants to unmute themselves first, and I'll call in you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take a stab at that. I guess I wouldn't do too much different in the application process, but one thing I would definitely do to prepare myself better is if you're going to join a group that specializes in like computational research, which is what my group does. I really wish that I had taken the time to actually do a proper programming class so that I could learn whatever language that you're going to need for your research. And that's pretty simple to figure out. You can just email your prospective advisor and say, hey, what languages does the lab use? And learn those languages really well. Even if they're just for simplistic problems, it'll save you a lot of time in the future, which is something that I had to do as I was going through my master's at Georgia Tech. I wasted a lot of time learning the right way to code.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would say specific to the application process itself, start it earlier than you think you need to. It's going to take you longer than you thought it would. You're going to have to review everything one more time than you really wanted to. So just being prepared with that. an easy thing to kind of push off, especially if you're applying like your fourth or fifth year at Tech. You're also like you have capstone and you have final projects. Like it's one of those things that you can say, oh, I'll do it like next weekend. But just stay on top of it, do it earlier. You will thank yourself later.
In terms of, I completely agree with what the other two students have already said. Be prepared, like learn maybe some foundation for whatever lab you're gonna end up joining before you get there. It's always helpful. But and let's see. Oh, I thought I was muted. Sorry. But I wanted to add. I've noticed over the past year or two, and also during my undergraduate degree, that a lot of students are like really, really, really afraid to speak up. And one thing I would have done differently is just be less afraid to actually ask questions. Like Brianna was saying earlier, I wanted to echo that. I think it's usually like people are afraid to ask questions, and then if the whole class is silent and no one's saying anything, you might think everyone else is not asking because they know, but really somebody else has the same question, and it really isn't that big a deal if somebody knows the answer to your question and you ask it. But it just seems really scary, but it does really help you. And if you communicate with your professors and make sure that you're on the right page and you sort of are proactive about keeping up with being engaged with the material, I think asking questions is a really big part of that. And I also just wanted to say, real quick, I have a performing arts background, and while I think I'm probably one of the shyest people that I know, but having been in that world, like you're expected to be vulnerable and put yourself out there and make a mistake and fail, and all of that is very celebrated in the performing arts world. And then I came to I switched over to a chemistry degree and then biochemistry graduate degree, and I feel like I'm not really surrounded by that kind of culture anymore. And I've just noticed like a lot of fear in peers and in the students I TA for. And so I wanted to say that and maybe bring a different perspective.
I'm going to chime in. We have a question, but also I am on campus. I'm the pre-graduate advisor, and I can support you throughout your decision to go to grad school, and especially the application process. Those of you that have worked with me, I do push you hard on those essays because that's your interview on paper a lot of times. But it is worth it, and there's a lot of reflection that goes into that process. So it's not just a very scientific, technical. Even if you're coming from a humanities, there's a lot of self-reflection that is involved in the whole decision to go to graduate school. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to follow up my information. But I am support on campus, and so you don't have to do that alone. And you've also got the support of your faculty members, as Annalise is saying. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go to office hours. I know it's harder in virtual, but our faculty here are people. They're showing that. They're thinking about your emotions. They're thinking about so much beyond what your major is and who you are as a student. And don't forget about them as being really valuable resources for you as well. And one of our questions that's been asked is, did any of you take a time before you applied to graduate school? Brian's asked to use the term gap year. I actually use the term bridge year because a gap is a hole and a bridge has direction, right? So a time between undergrad and graduate school can be a valuable bridge to lead you into graduate school. And so graduate students, if you want to answer that question. And then I believe Karen Mura is in the audience, and she's the prestigious fellowships advisor, and I'm going to pull her in briefly just to talk quickly about the way you can bridge time through prestigious fellowships. So graduate students, did any of you take time between your undergraduate and your PhD, whether it be another graduate program or you worked or anything before you started a doctoral program?
I'll go. So I didn't take any time, but I took a lot of time between my first undergraduate degree and my second undergraduate degree. So I did years of figuring out what I wanted to do. And when I started back in school, I felt really directed. And so I think taking some time after like your first college experiences can be really valuable, like Susan was saying, to just become like a little bit more mature and realize like what you want, and then get some motivation to really get it, because it might be really hard, or if you like switch directions, it will be really hard. Yeah.
You just got a shout out in the chat, best TA for Chem 3511. Anyone else that wants to chime in? Matt, I'm curious, you said you had a master's first, so was that your bridge, or did you decide to go on for a PhD once you were a master's student?
Yeah, so that was, I originally came into Georgia Tech as just thinking of doing a master's, but then I had the opportunity to extend.
Mm-hmm.
I chose to do it just because I really enjoyed working in our lab. And I felt like I hadn't learned everything that I needed to before going to work in the industry. So it was kind of an easy decision for me to make, to stay. So.
And Karen, if you're still with us, if you want to chime in for a minute or so.
Okay, thank you, Susan. First of all, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Karen Mura. I'm the prestigious fellowships advisor, and I also work on the PGPP team. And in fact, Susan and I coordinate together. We often refer students back and forth to each other. In terms of postgraduate fellowships, opportunities that you can apply for when you're, say, in your final year at Tech, you have several options. There are postgrad fellowships that will help to finance your graduate school program. So that's one option, additional funding for graduate school. In addition, there are opportunities that can help to provide you with extra experiences that might provide a stronger foundation for graduate school down the road. The caution is, not to refer to these experiences as a gap year, because most fellowship applications, they're looking for you to have a clear kind of trajectory why this fellowship is providing you with a necessary or essential next step in terms of your professional or career development. But there are all sorts of opportunities where you can apply for fellowships to do a year of independent research. You could apply to do research in some kind of think tank or NGO. It depends a little bit on your background, whether you're STEM or social sciences or humanities. You can apply for fellowships that will provide you with a one-year master's program. Sometimes that's advantageous if you are trying to pivot slightly from your undergraduate area to a slightly different PhD area. A one-year master's can sometimes give you, information that you might have missed out in your undergraduate prep. And then there are enrichment opportunities where you can just gain amazing experiences abroad. For instance, if you're interested in community development work, teaching English in another country, and you don't need to have an English degree or a teaching certificate to do that kind of teaching English abroad. But if you're interested in, say, a multicultural experience where you would spend a year immersed in another culture, that can bring all its own kind of rewards and benefits. And I'm a firm believer in, it's all good. So no matter what graduate program you might think about going on, if you have an amazing experience in country X for 9 or 10 months, you will be able to leverage that experience in your graduate school applications. So I'm going to stop there because I want to keep it short, and I want to hear from our experts today.
Thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate you letting me pull you in. So that actually leads well into the next question, which is for our faculty. What are some of the insights that you can offer to prospective graduate students in terms of preparing for graduate school and being a strong applicant for graduate school programs? Whoever wants to go first can start us off.
I'll go first. That's fine. So the first thing I would say is the element of self-reflection that you mentioned, Susan, before about writing letters is actually very, very crucial. And so a superficial personal letter is something that, you just detect it immediately. So you have to be thoughtful about it. And many times being thoughtful requires more than just introspection. So talking to somebody is one way of thinking. That's something you have to learn. You just do not think very well alone until you verbalize or write down stuff. You don't really know what you're thinking. Just be accustomed to putting things outside of your head to know what the thoughts are. And that includes how you prepare to present yourself in an application of any sort. So that would be the first point. The second point would be to get support, letters, for example. Professors have many, many students in their classes. They may remember you. They may remember your face. They may even remember what grade they gave you or something like that. But maybe they do not remember other details that might be interesting and important to put in a letter. So I would suggest that you go to the people that you think might write a letter for you and talk about the joint experience and kinds of things the professor might remember about you. And one thing I have done, asked other people I have written letters for to do is write a memo with all the experiences you've had with that advisor or that professor that are things that might be highlighted in the letter. This is not that you are saying what the professor has to write or what opinion he has of you. It's just giving him factual information, because a letter that just says, oh, this is a great student, you have to have him, that does not cut it. It has to be documented with actual evidence. And so you want to give that professor the evidence to make the job of writing the letter easier, also more complete, and professors will appreciate this. So you want to do that. And so very open and transparent, at the same time supportive in giving all that information to the faculty member to write a letter, or to your supporter reference to write the letter. The third thing I would say is do your homework about the place you want to go to. And that is gathering information that might be out there, talking to maybe some people that have been in the program, but also reach out to the faculty. I mean, we like to talk to prospective applicants. We love to do that. It's a very difficult job to actually gauge the potential or promise of an applicant of any sort. It's one of the most difficult decisions that are made in management, the future performance of applicants. It's very, very difficult to do. And we make mistakes. We made lots of mistakes. And you try to learn from them, but things still are difficult. So you gather information by getting to know people. So just talking to faculty in the program you go to is actually something that people may not want to talk to you. That's fine, but somebody might. And so reach out to do that, to get as much as you can information about the program, and then be sure you know why you want to be there. You can be very bright, you can be very good, very capable, but if this is not the right place for you, you're going to be frustrated and we're going to be frustrated, and we want to avoid that at all costs. So that is another point here. You have to know why you want to be there. This is a community. Being part of a community takes relationship building. We want to know that that is going to be a successful process, that we're going to be able to build that relationship with you, and that you're going to be having a good time with us, and you're going to be successful in the end. And so our own success depends on your success. That's something you have to realize. And so we want to gauge that very carefully. And the more information you give us about that, the better off you and we are. And I would stop there.
Thank you for that. I was going to put in the chat too what Juan was saying, the building of relationships. If I gave any of you here long-term homework from the moment you step on campus, is building those relationships, because it's, as Juan was saying, it's that letter, that doesn't happen overnight. You need that relationship for that letter to be strong in your application. Are other professors that want to chime in?
So just to echo on what Juan was saying, I feel this is a very strong point, the reference letters as well. My suggestion, my personal suggestion, what I like to do with my students whenever they ask me to write a reference letter is actually to meet them. So typically I initiate this, but actually the students need to initiate. Come to the office, talk with the professors, tell them about your research. We are always interested to hear what is going on in the department, what is going on in your research life. We are never shutting the door. So that would be my first suggestion is, and of course, send this well in advance because I mean we typically get more than just one invitation to write a reference letter. Another thing that I wanted to echo again on Juan's point is know what you want. Know what you want, do your homework, do your research, and then contact us. Contact us and show the passion, right? Because when you are passionate, when you want to do something, we are definitely passionate. We want to develop our expertise. We want to develop our group, and you are the means to do this. I mean, this is the graduate students would eventually do all the work. I do zero work, Matt does 100% of the work. And that's exactly what happens. So, you know, if you contact us via the email, not a mass email, but really a specific email that focuses me as a professor, my research, you know, you did your homework, you talk about my specific papers maybe even, and you can even ask me to meet with you, and I will be happy to do so. And I believe that if not all, then most of the professors in Georgia Tech would follow the same path. And I will stop now. Thank you very much.
I think for me, the best preparation for graduate school, at least in the general area of chemistry and maybe even any experimental science, is just having experience doing it. You know, as an undergrad, joining a lab, that really goes a long way in demonstrating to a graduate selection panel that this candidate has invested the time and energy to really learn a topic and get into it. But not only that, being able to describe your research interests to somebody that doesn't really appreciate the science that you're doing, you know. So in your application, you know, let's say you did some work in a lab and developed an interest in a particular area that you want to explore in graduate school. In your application, you know, I don't want to hear about like you've figured out the catalytic parameters for some catalyst. I want to hear about the larger problem and what thing that you did that helped solve some larger question. That really speaks to the maturity and your understanding about what you're doing, and that goes a long way because it tells me I'm getting somebody that's thought more deeply and broadly about a specific area of interest. And so